Check 1 2. Hello, everyone. I said hello, everyone. Oh, yes, we are in the room. So we want to welcome everyone to the Bay Area Art and Equity Conversation. This is Conversations with Bay Area Artists of Color, and this is our part 2. This is all about NFTs, and this is brought to you by the Oakland Art Murmur, the Immersive Arts Alliance, and of course, Shack 15. My name is Michelle Antoinette Nelson, AKA Love the Poet, and I am glad to be here with you. You can clap for me, makes me feel good about myself. Thank you. Thank you. I'll be moderating this wonderful panel with these 3 brilliant artists, and I'm just gonna have them introduce themselves. We're gonna get right into it. So, Brandon Ruffin, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hello, everybody. My name is Brandon Ruffin. I was born here in San Francisco. I grew up in Richmond. I've been living in Oakland for the past decade and primarily creating portraits of people on the street in different places in the world. Lots in Oakland, lots in San Francisco, obviously, as I'm right here, but plenty on the East Coast and in South America and in one of my favorite spots, Cuba. Wherever I go, if you want to see me, I have a camera with me, and I like to talk to people and hear their stories and, commit this act of humanity that we forget about called conversation. And at the end, sometimes I get a photo, and it seems to be something that people enjoy, and it reminds us that we're very similar in a lot of ways. And so I think that's always attracted me to portraiture, specifically street portraiture, the spontaneity of it. A lot of my portraits focus in communities of color. A lot of my portraits also focus in communities that are sort of just kind of pass by on the daily basis. So a lot of folks who are homeless, a lot of folks who are struggling with substance abuse or mental health issues. I have found myself in a space where I really like to try to tell the stories of and deal with people who are kind of voiceless and bring their stories up front, where with the busyness or just the sort of complex nature of life as it is today, where we're very, city people, we're kind of used to walking by people, that these stories and these people can be seen. And so that's my work. I paint, I do, graphic design, all the other types of things, but I love photography. I currently work on a research team with Google, developing computational photography stuff as well, so it's the more technical side of things, but that's about it.
Thank you, Brandon. Give it up for Brandon, everyone. Up next, we have Rachel Wolfe-Goldsmith. Please tell us about yourself.
Hey, y'all. My name is Rachel Wolfe-Goldsmith, a.k.a. Wolfpack. I'm a muralist artist based out of Oakland, California. I'm originally from Oregon. I've been in the Bay for about 10 or 11 years now. I'm also the creative director at the Bay Area Mural Program, and most of my work is focused around empowering images of people of color and people who look like me and friends of mine. I'm interested in giving people their flowers while they're here. So I love to do photo shoots of people that I know and people in my community and represent them, 40 feet tall on walls around town. As Bay Area Mural Program, we do a lot of community-based work, so we have a series of meetings with our clients, and not just the clients, but the people who live around there. They tell us what they want to see, we go back and forth, and we produce work that represents their stories. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rachel. Give it up for Rachel. And up next, we have Asya Abdrahman. Please tell us about yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Asya Abdrahman, and I began as an artist that painted with oil paintings. And the materials that I used often spoke of the trials and tribulations that humanity goes through. So I began with oil because I'm an environmental artist and I'm very conscious about the climate catastrophe that is facing us. And from there, I evolved to becoming a multidisciplinary artist. 2020 removed me from my studio, and so I started full-time into digital art and becoming acquainted with something called NFTs and cryptocurrencies, why we're here tonight. And finally, I became the founder, a co-founder of Kindness Grocery Co-op, because it seemed that we needed some sort of organization to begin to launch off for our communities of need. So, yeah, so from an artist to a community activist organizer.
Awesome. Please, get up for Asya. So before we get into more in depth your work that you just shared with us, we want to talk a little bit about what blockchain is and what NFTs are, because it's kind of a complex concept. So Brandon, can you please tell us what blockchain is?
Blockchain is a digital ledger that is authenticated and agreed upon on the people within a network through blocks of information. Those blocks are pretty much unable to be changed, and they all rely on each other for that information to stay consistent. So probably an even more simplified version of that, it's a digital ledger. It's a way to track information on a network and be verified through other bits of information that follow that same chain on the network.
Y'all okay with that? That makes sense to you? Okay. Asya, can you please explain to us what NFTs are?
Coming up here, I almost forgot. An NFT is a non-fungible token, and it is a certificate of authentication, right, or authenticity. So it's kind of like your, when you have a car, you have a certificate of ownership, and the NFT is a certificate of ownership of anything. In this case, we're showing art, but it could be ownership of anything physical, like my bag, or it could be a special chair that you made, not duplicated, just one of a kind, usually original work.
Awesome, thank you. So now we want to get into your work. Rachel, we're going to start with you. How did you start out in your art? This is kind of a loaded question. So how did you start out in your art? What is your main medium that you tend to work with? And how has NFT art shifted your artistic process? I can always repeat it. Okay.
How did I start out in art? I feel like there's pictures of me being like 2-3 years old, covered in paint, head to toe, like running around my house like a crazy person. And it pretty much just went from there. I was the only child. Everything I always did went back to like drawing, painting, any kind of self-expression, dance, acting, all of that. As you know, I got older, I think I got into graffiti, I got into street art. That kind of developed over time into a mural practice. I've found like working on a large scale, people's response to that work, and I guess I have a natural propensity for being able to do that kind of work quickly. It felt really good to like be outside and to have people responding to the work. So instead of being trapped in your studio where you're just like alone all the time, you're actually having people walk by and be like, oh, I love that. Oh, that looks like my homie, or like, oh, this reminds me of such and such, and it gives that kind of energy that was missing in studio work. So my main focus has been over the last few years doing mural work, and then NFTs. I guess I realized that it was a thing that I should pay attention to, and I didn't understand it, and I was like, let me go ahead and just dive in as deep as possible right off the jump. So how has it changed my work? I guess I'm curious about how muralists and analog artists move into this space, how we can continue doing what is in our wheelhouse, but make it something that applies to the blockchain and to NFTs. So what I'm currently working on is a collaborative project at the Tribune Tower in Oakland, and a friend of mine who may or may not be sitting in the front row here had access to this whole space, and he was like, you can go crazy in here. So I called up a bunch of muralists, and Brandon has a photo mural install in there and some videographers, and we've essentially just been transforming the entire space and asking the question, like, how do we make everything that occurs in here, not just the art on the walls, but the video content that goes behind it, the stories of the artists and all these other things, how do we turn all of these into NFTs? With NFTs, it's a lot more like wrapping your head around, like, it is a different medium, it's a digital medium, so we're looking at like, okay, well, how is this going to display on a website? And how is that attractive to somebody who's just scrolling through something? What makes you wanna click on something? What is it that's compelling about a story? And how do you tell that story in a way that's like brief enough to capture people's like ADHD attention spans, while giving like the full depth of what it is you're talking about? So I think it feeds me in a lot of different ways that like maybe murals being so straightforward, this is like a new challenge that's really exciting to try to tackle.
Awesome, thank you. Asya, what about you?
My art, the way that I started in art was through art therapy. I would doodle all the time as a kid, and all throughout high school and college, doodle. I never took art classes, I'm self-taught. And then I traveled the world and decided that I was always an artist. It just came out. I hung out with a lot of street artists in the streets and would be making work with them. And it occurred to me in the early 2000s that I actually was a full-time artist. And it began with the oil that I told you about, and then went on because I'm African. I came here as a refugee, and so art was like art therapy for me. That's the direction that I came into art, was in healing. So in a lot of my work is focused upon healing, and healing myself, and healing my communities.
Brandon, do you remember the question? Can you answer
Repeat
it?
it one more time. Same, it's kind of a similar story as everybody else up here. Art has been like something that I never remember not doing. So it's like, for me, it's as old as breathing or thinking or my heart beating. I've always done art, and it seems to be something that I was always good at. I was always exceptional at it. Obviously, like as a child, it's art. I feel like we're all artists as children, right? That's saying that we all kind of forget to, we stop creating art, and so thus we're no longer artists. But it was just something that stayed consistent in my life. I've tried and done so many things. I like to do things. I like to learn things. I like to get involved with things. But art was just one of those things that never went away. So I started with just drawing things, sketching. I'm a big comic book guy, so I would like copy things out of comic books, and then I create my own characters. I was a big anime person as well, probably not surprising with being a comic book guy. And so I was just always trying to create things that I saw, and then from there, as I got these baseline foundations of creation, then I would create things that were inside my head. Shortly after that, so probably I think I really got into hip hop. Someone introduced me like hip hop like when I was like 10 or 11, and that was it for me. So I really got into graffiti. I was introduced to software to create art like at a very young age. I was about 11 as well. My dad brought home like some version of Photoshop, and I started working on that. This is like pre-YouTube, so I literally just had to learn it by spending a ridiculous amount of hours with it. And one day it hit me like, why don't I try to, color this graffiti work in Photoshop? And so I started doing that. I got into graphic design for a long time. The transition from graphic design to photography was sort of I wanted photos that just didn't exist sometimes, or that I didn't want to purchase the rights to, like being a broke 19-year-old or 20-year-old. So I thought, well, why don't I just start like learning how to take pictures, and then I could do that. There was obviously a huge therapeutic aspect to street photography for me, but then there was also just this sense of like, man, if I could feel this way, then I can bring this to other people by telling stories and using the camera and my words to tell stories. So I got hooked to that, and as much as I feel like I give to the photography community, I get a whole lot more back from being able to go out into the streets and take pictures and meet people. And so that's kind of where my journey really took off, is I felt that as an artist, I was having the largest impact in communicating to other people through this medium of photography, specifically through the medium of street photography, and even more specifically through the medium of street portraiture. As far as NFTs, I've been involved in crypto for a while. I love technology. I've been involved with tech from a very young age as well. And it just seemed very natural that when NFTs became what they were, that as an artist and also as a technologist, that I be involved in learning more about the technology and figuring out like how to push things. And so as I was thinking about the project with Rachel, like we spent more time, instead of wrapping our minds around what could be done, we were like unwrapping our minds to what the possibilities were, like what hasn't been done, what can be done. How do we build this thing that, and I think that's what's amazing about NFTs is like it doesn't force you, it allows you the space to create and do things that other people have never done before. And that's what's beautiful about it, is that it's like this open canvas. And so in that, it makes you more creative. And I feel in that space that I've been able to challenge myself as an artist to do things that I'm not doing, or like figure out, what am I trying to communicate, and being able to use NFTs and that technology to communicate those things, not without any of the pressure of algorithms or followings or like any of that. Just sheer, I'm an artist, I want to create things, like what can I do that's different? And it takes me all the way back to feeling like that teenage graffiti artist who's trying to figure out how to make things like other people can't get to, can't figure it out. It's like a puzzle. And so NFTs have impacted my work in the sense that it's just re-engaged me into that like very childhood-like state of being an artist and trying to do things that other people haven't done.
That's a perfect segue into the rest of this conversation. And this is Conversations with Bay Area artists. So I want to just spark a conversation about the positives of NFTs for specifically artists of color. And I think you sparked it off, but any one of you can take this.
I know so many artists that now can pay their rent, and they're like, for the first time, I can pay my rent. A few of them bought houses, so it has been, I approached NFTs from a reparations model, and rather than asking for reparations, you give yourself your own. And so, you generate it on your own, because being a regenerative artist, you always think about how can you sustainably regenerate in a circular way constantly, not just a one-time. It's lovely to have the one-time boost to start it, but this was the approach, was like, how do you uplift your community? And so the artists that first got into it, like right away, they're like, oh my God, my rent is paid. My Twitter feed is full of artists that are like, I paid my rent for 6 months. I paid just from NFT sales. And so when my anarchist friends on the other end are like, it's horrible, I'm like, well, I see it saving a lot of people's lives, that they could all be in the streets. And now it's preventing that from happening in a realistic, tangible way. And I have a friend that's actually working on the data, side of it, so that they can show the immediate impact of what just began, just since January, not even, 2020, but just since these last 6 months, people's lives have been transformed.
Yeah, I mean, there was something you were talking about earlier where, like, you're talking about somebody buying something at a low price and that thing gaining value, right? And that was something that we were talking about, is like a lot of money is made on second market NFT sales. So people, will sometimes put something out at a low value and attach the royalties to it and let other people buy it and continue changing hands. And as it changes hands, those royalties go back to the original artist, and the other people benefit from it as well. And that was something that we were looking at in terms of like what we're doing, where we're hosting a physical space and we're like, hey, come to this physical space. What if you have Erykah Badu, or what if you have some famous artist come play in your space and you charge a low price for your tickets, but there's a very limited amount, so you create this demand for it, and that ticket's attached to a piece of artwork. Now your homies are buying a $20 ticket to an event, and afterwards, whatever artwork it's attached to, hopefully that's gaining on the second market. So after people attend your event or attend this thing, the value for that thing goes up, and you've actually passed around something that can help build wealth to the people in your life.
So you're saying attach the NFT to the actual live concert, and then put royalty, like put the there. So there is an option to make it with royalties, right, or not.
And that is one of the probably the most prominent things that I guess people talk about as far as the NFT market goes, and specifically for artists of color, is like, we can sell our artwork without having to go around to a bunch of bougie galleries and have people be like, why you look like that, or you don't fit my idea of what high-end art is. Like, you get to produce your own artwork without that middleman. You get to put it out to the world. If people are feeling it, they're gonna buy it. And guess what? There's a lot of people like us who like what we create. So we just cut out that middleman. Our artwork is going to people, and then we attach an automatic royalty. So it depends on the platform, but most platforms have a royalty that you attach to your work. Because it's on the blockchain, it goes automatically to your wallet. You don't have to, have anybody come find you, come look you up, blah, blah, blah. You just make your money directly.
So what are some of these platforms? Because you kind of have to dig a little bit to find these decentralized spaces. So what are some of the platforms you all use or have heard of in this space?
We're on Zora. We're on actually OpenSea, but we'll be on Zora next.
You said OpenSea?
OpenSea, yeah, that's where we started because there were no gas fees. And then after that, we're moving to Zora. And we are very chain agnostic, so we want to stay flexible and move from place to place, depending on what serves us best as a community. And when I say we, I don't come here alone. Like, I haven't done any of this alone. I've been working with a whole team, and just my roots has always been in a we sense. So the NFTs that my group has dropped were like 33 of them, and we kept the price so low for the art. All of my group are artists, every one of them. And then we fractionalized the artwork so that if something sells for one person, you're rooting for everyone because everyone has ownership. So this jealousy of like, oh, you made so much because you're so well known and you're unknown, because there's a following. There's a thing that's happening right now where it's like the mainstream art world. In January, I did a Clubhouse talk, and all I was trying to do was teach people about NFTs so they can join in, my friends in my community, and Sotheby's and all the big players joined in, and they're like, what about the galleries? I was like, we're here learning, this isn't about you, and we're here to open the doors for everybody. And they were like, but what about us? I'm like, you guys are good, we're homeless, we're dying. You guys are sitting on millions and billions of dollars, and you're threatened by our livelihood. So yeah, I knew something was happening in that moment when that Clubhouse talk happened. I was like, this is really unbelievable. For us to be able to pay our rent and buy our groceries brings all these big people into the space. In just the learning, it was just an NFT Bible study. That's what we called it, because OpenSea has an NFT Bible. So for your first understanding, they wrote something, but it is tech-oriented. And then my group on Kindness Grocery Co-op, we did a book club just explaining it in a kindergarten fashion because, we're coming at this from zero.
Brandon, you got any thoughts about this?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing was to have an opportunity to step around gatekeepers. That's no different than the way that art is consumed or even produced. And so for me, I enjoyed this idea of artists being able to move around the gatekeepers, because the gatekeepers, for the most part, are the ones who establish the parameters in which we live in, and they assign value to things, and then we are the consumers and we buy it. we either buy ideologies or we buy products or whatever it is, but we buy things set by a very small group of people. And so I didn't want to create art that was within the parameters of anybody else's like idea of what art should be, or that my art should be valued at the sense of what this very small group of people thought that the art was worth. And so I like the idea that we can all just go and like deal with art as we want. If someone in here wanted to purchase a piece for $1 million, it doesn't need the co-signing of some really wealthy art dealer to say, yeah, that's a $1 million piece, you should buy that. That's a good investment. It's like if the people assign the value to this thing, then that is the value it should have. And to me, that felt very genuine. And it felt very authentic. I truly feel that NFTs and blockchain technology is the future. Right? I feel like we're looking at the World Wide Web, but for our generation. And so, it's hard not to be involved in something like, when you recognize it, it's hard not to be involved in something like that. And yeah, I think that this technology brings power to people and doesn't allow it to be blocked off by someone who says, no, that's not what people want. Give us a chance to tell you what we want. And so that's what it does.
Well, that brings a question to my mind about, I've heard you all mention Clubhouse a couple of times. And I'm hearing that this is about taking away the gatekeepers and that you can talk directly to people and get your work directly to people. Now, being that this is early stage, how are you going from the analog world to this digital world and getting people to buy this work? Asya, you said people have gotten cars and homes and all of this. Are you doing this? What channels are you using? Is it as difficult to drum up participation as it is to get someone to come to an event? Or, how are you doing this? Break it down, y'all.
Straight up secret.
It feels like a subculture, secret.
It's a subculture. And why I say it's a secret is the people, the old heads, everybody who has been there before, the digital natives, okay? They have their whole world already set up from the crypto kitties age to everyone who's already been digital. Now, those of us that come from I call it the real world, the analog world, there is something that's called a digital divide that's happening right now. So the internet as we know it is called Web 2.0. What's come up right now is Web 3.0. And in Web 3.0, it's like a hard stop. Right now, if you're in the NFT world, Ethereum is it. A few others just came out recently, but Ethereum was the main form of exchange of buying and selling NFTs. Now there's, the original one was Bitcoin with the crypto kitties, but Ethereum became the house of artists. So all artists, where they're getting their wealth, when you're saying, how do people get to know about it? Well, Discord. I didn't have a Discord. I was like, and on New Year's Eve, I had a person walk me through in the most horrible way for about 6 hours of going to get a Discord and minting my first NFT, which I minted a series of 7 called Enska.
So, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. What is Discord? I know what it is, but for
Discord is just another app.
It's like Slack a little bit.
It's a server. It's a server that people communicate on.
Yeah. It's another one. I'm tired of these. Another Slack, another Telegram, another WhatsApp. It's just another one. But this one is the community that communicates in this. So those digital natives, they live on Twitter and Discord and communicate back and forth. And on Discord, they give each other instructions where the secret place was, where everyone was doing everything, is in the Discord world. But Discord looks like coding. So to us with regular eyes, we would be a little bit disturbed looking at it. And I still, when I look at it, I don't enjoy it. I do have a Discord, but it is off-putting to me. Like, this is not a world that I would come into, and I'm very concerned about all of my community, the kids, the elders, everybody coming. And so how do you get everybody if I just went through this fire? And I was like, I never want to come back here again. This is not what I want to do. And so then on Clubhouse, this is what's so amazing about Clubhouse, because Twitter now has, what is it called? Rooms, or what's it called?
Spaces.
Spaces, yeah,
Twitter
so they can
Spaces.
try to be like Clubhouse. The problem with Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter is that you have algorithms of silos. You'll never meet anyone new, only friends of friends and people who all think like you. In Clubhouse, you meet the whole world. It's like audio walking in.
Yeah.
And so you meet people you would have never met, and you get into conversations with them. So in Clubhouse, I met one of those people that I would have never met. And for 3 months, he walked me through like a kindergartner, right? Every day, little by little. And then I did have the advantage of having Lady Phoenix as my, collaborator. So we've been working since August. So I understood a lot of concepts from her. But to be able to do everything myself, I had 3 months of training. And that's what people don't tell you. Is like the first time I did get my MetaMask wallet, but it was just such a horrible experience that I was like, there's no way I would ever, do this. And there's companies that are set up. That one, I'm gonna name them as Future Modern, And Chibu, you were cool, but, still, that was just too much for people who don't know anything about this world. So those people that are making it are digital natives. They already had an inclination to it, and so they had an advantage. For me, I want to break the digital divide, and like create like bridges or bring things close together, because in Web3, we have no choice. Like it's a hard stop. Like you have to fully reevaluate everything that you've done. The blockchain is a different world from the world that we're in right now.
You just said a word. Please clap for that. Whew. It is with crypto and with NFTs at this point, it sounds like you have to be willing to dig, and that it's a journey. And all three of you are in different stages of your journey. So any thoughts coming from you, Rachel, or go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty I think we just minted our first NFT from the show yesterday. So we've been in the process of essentially creating the work, generating the ideas, building the community, doing the outreach on Clubhouse, Discord, like all this stuff, getting people who run different platforms to visit the space and see what we're up to. But I'm so tired of it. It's exhausting. It's definitely exhausting. And it's it's exciting because it's possible to get around gatekeepers, but at the same time, what people do in life is bond with people who think like them. And you see that happening, and what you see as what I've seen as the first wave of people who have established themselves in Clubhouse, which is an app where people just talk to each other about stuff, is that from my perspective, it seems that people who are, as you say, digital natives, people who are familiar with the technology, familiar with all these ideas, have seen a place where it's possible to make a money grab and have jumped in there. Meanwhile, we're building amazing events that you could come to and you can learn about this, you could do this, and the art is exciting and the ideas behind the art are exciting. So it's just funny because it is the same way where you build a hype and you get people to believe in something that might not really be that cool. That also means that it's possible to build something that is really cool and get people excited about it. So it exists on both sides, and that's why it's important for us to be in the space at all. And, if we're able to be there and to be bringing people who make quality stuff, who, have exciting things to share with the world, and, teach other people how to do these things, that seems really important.
Riffing off of Rachel, I'm there for the long term. So that's why I took the time to go slow, made the artworks, and just started to bring them in. I started doing something called NFT Art for Good. And then what was so interesting is instantly I saw my impact on Clubhouse and places, because immediately after, a whole bunch of new NFT for good came up, and this is the kind of impact I want to make in the world. The quality of something doesn't dictate where it is. Wealth should be wealth building for communities. That's what NFTs do, is they wealth build for communities. And it's not, I've heard many talks of people saying that it's a way for people to hide money, to launder money, to do all these kinds of things, but to me, it's a tool, and the tool is how you use it. So a knife, you can stab someone with it, or you can create a beautiful meal for many people. And so the direction that I'm coming in is creating that beautiful meal for many people. So I would like to see as many people as possible come in, because we have no choice. If in 1999, was it like, if you didn't have an email at that time, it's like, what are you thinking? And now there's no way of even moving forward in life. So this is something that's inevitable. How can you shift it? How can you shift it to bend in the direction that you want it? When you're there, like if we're there, we can shape what it is. For the little bit of time that I've been in there, even without what is called personal success, still there's a huge impact in the movements.
But in the NFT space, there's not a long enough history to even predict any of these things. So what people are doing is there's a money grab and there's also FOMO, right? So everyone wants to buy, spend a bunch of money on a CryptoPunk or an ape because they don't want to miss out. Because if they spend $10,000 on it now, because all the hype, well, yeah, but in 20 years it's going to be worth $100,000, so this is a great investment. Yeah, well, in between that 20 years, that your investment may go back down to it being worth $100, right? So there will be that in this space. But what there won't be is I feel like the technology is the lack of ability to corrupt this technology, the levels in which it has to go through all these other people's fingers for it to be authenticated. There's a purity in that, right? There's talks of using blockchain or using Ethereum frameworks to make the voting process better and faster and less susceptible to corruption and things like that, right? There are true benefits to this technology. And so the one great thing about the hype right now is it's introducing all these people to this tech. It's making people go, well, I know there's people, like, if you want to encourage some people to do something, tell them there's money there, right? I hear people are making money on this. What is this? And so when they find out what it is, then from there, the trail goes down into where you start to learn, okay, well, this is what an NFT is. And you have to have Ethereum to buy an NFT, so what's Ethereum? And, Ethereum is more than just a currency. It's all that. You can build this. That's built on Ethereum. Like, people start to learn based off of this, like, high-level instinct that I want to go make some money off of this. But it introduces the idea to people, and there's a lot to be said with the ability to introduce an idea. I feel like the technology that we are stepping into has an ability to even out the odds a little bit and allow artists to be artists.
So with that, when we talk about artists who are homeless or hungry or trying to make it in the art world, how do we navigate this, getting them to this technology? And this could just be a brainstorm, but like, how do we navigate that? Because it sounds to me like, how would they have the resources to be able to get into this space?
Well, I guess that's me now, right? All right, so as a human being that's been left behind a lot, and I was homeless while I was pregnant with my third child, and I had a toddler. So this experience taught me a whole lot. And I had a couple art shows during that time, when I gave birth while I was in the streets and doing these high-end shows. It was quite bizarre to be going between these worlds. And we connected it so community care was first, then we thought NFT art, but then no one knew what NFTs were. So I was like, okay, then crypto to the people, because you need cryptocurrency to be able to use NFTs to buy and sell. And then NFT art. And then NFT art is the art of the unhoused people. Us, me in the community, and the people in the streets as well would make their arts. Those of them, they still manage to make art on their phones and send it digitally. We taught some of them to mint it. And when you were saying about access, they can't get a bank account, but they can get cryptocurrency.
Right.
Because you don't need an ID. Right?
Banking the unbanked, as they say.
And people have phones.
Yeah.
People do be having phones.
And they have the phones, yeah.
Yeah, so the barrier of not being able to keep an ID, not being able to go to the bank, not having a mailing address, those are all barriers. Crypto dropped all those barriers.
It's important to remember, too, like Bitcoin is one of the only coins that is essentially a currency. Majority of these other currencies and tokens, these are things that are representative of a lot of times organizations or groups that are working on a technology, rather it be to make cryptocurrency more efficient, or rather it could sometimes have nothing to do with cryptocurrency, but you're buying into this idea, you're buying into supporting this group, and as they do better, if they make something revolutionary, then you're like, yeah, I bought this at, whatever, 4 cents, and now it's worth $20,000 a coin, right? So a lot of these things are just representations of support into a system, or like Ethereum is essentially it's a network, but it's not like Bitcoin. That's the beautiful part about cryptocurrency, is that it is a reminder that we can assign value to things, we can trade things. There is no difference between the shiny rock of gold and a Dogecoin.
Yeah.
But in our minds there is, because we're like, oh, well, gold has all this utility.
Right.
It's not. It's just because as human beings,
people use it.
Yeah, people have said this shiny rock is nice. I like it, so I'll give you stuff for it.
Yeah. Well, I want to move on. Just 2 more questions for you guys. One is brief. What would you tell an artist what's one thing you would tell an artist that is new to the NFT space?
Take your time. Don't rush into it.
Think about it. What's one thing you would tell a new artist in the NFT space?
Take your time, plan your strategy, and think about how long. Like, don't treat it like a get-rich scheme, and think about your community, because crypto crashes, but communities don't crash. They're still there.
That's a quotable. Crypto crashes, but communities don't crash. Quote her on that. You gotta, please think about it.
I have told people that create what you want. That's what's beautiful about the space. Make whatever you want. Don't give a shit about what everybody else is making. This is something that we talk about a lot in the NFT photography community. NFTs are about the story. NFT collectors are the ones that I've had the chance to speak with and I interact with. They want story. They don't just want a cool piece of art, because the reality is there's a bunch of cool art sitting on these marketplaces. And Beeple, being one of the most notable artists in the space, is not the best 3D animator on the space. He's just not. He's amazing, but he's not the best. Or somebody is better than him, I can guarantee it. And their NFT is probably sitting on a marketplace somewhere as a reserve price for 1 ETH, not gonna move. Because there's no story behind it. But Beeple has a story behind his work. There's something very incredible about what he did, and so it's more than just the art that he's created, but it's his dedication to art that drives the price of his work. This is why he is now a rich man.
Yeah, but that's easy for white men to do. There are many black women, white women, all kinds of colors of women that didn't even make anywhere near what Beeple made. Cash, she made like 10-something thousand, I can't remember, somewhere in the tens of thousands. IX Shells, which is a really dope artist, her closest was like she was so excited and so happy, but $100,000. There are many people, like I have a long history in art, right? So there are many, I know so many of my elder black sisters and aunties that have dedicated their entire life to much more than what Beeple did. What is unique about Beeple is he is a white man. And that's why he gets to be a white presenting male. And that's why his price, just the same way as all of us women's prices, were depreciated simply because of our gender. And then as we go up in the color scheme, we are more devalued.
So y'all wait to the end, right, to go here. This is where we're at. This is, what kind of jam you just put me in? What do you think is this, I don't even want to say the word solution, but I guess this whole conversation has been about the solution and NFT being a part of it. But and this kind of brings to mind, like, if there are gatekeepers in this analog world, and then there's this digital world, and there's a divide, do you think that the gatekeepers are gearing up to try to be gatekeepers in that space? And how do you navigate this? Like what you're saying is Black women are still underappreciated in this space where you're not even really supposed to know what the person looks like. You know, like how are you imagining this away? Like how are we imagining getting out of this?
I'm not. I just recognize, like, I don't look up to people as an icon. I recognize it for what it is. And so for me, it's mobilizing my community. And when we move fast, I mean, when we come together, you have to move quickly, build as many bridges as possible so that people can come, weaving communities together. All of you need to come together to negotiate your value and to not participate in any more of this. Yes, Beeple is a great artist, but what's that mean to any Black woman? And I am friends with masters. I told you the divide of $100,000 highest paid women. He's at 69 million, 70 million. You know, so those kinds of things need to be like called out and not excited. You know, the next person who's up right now coming up is Ferocious, you know? And I did pronounce it right.
Who?
Ferocious, you know, he's at Sotheby's right now. So the institutions are still, what happened is that the real life world has just moved into the blockchain. Lucky for us, we can create our own ecosystems so their systems don't apply to us. I was telling you this earlier, Brandon, about it doesn't matter, you know, what is happening on the outside if you focus on within your own communities, your cities, your town, people that will support you.
The NFT market, as it stands today, and the way that people associate making money with NFTs is based off of people's success because he's made the most money. The fact that we made murals into an NFT, right, that is the purpose of the tech, is to create like ideas and implement these, you know, execute these ideas in ways that no one's ever used the technology for yet. Because the reality is the end-all, be-all is not the 3D animation, it's not Beeple. There are amazing still photographers who I hope and have encouraged on Clubhouse to continue to make miniature still photography. You do not need to make your photography pop lock, you know what I mean, to make it valuable in the NFT space. That's not, NFT is not a 3D animation. And so, the reason why I bring them up is because that is a lot of people's introduction to like being successful in the NFT space. I agree. And this concept about women, and particularly Black women, not being able to make the same kind of money or being offered the same things is nothing new. This has happened in every iteration of the art world that has existed.
In a lot of the worlds.
In a lot of the worlds. I mean.
So what do you do as a man in Fujifilm about that? Like,
give them a list of female photographers.
Do they?
Black female photographers in particular, and say, they're making great work. So we need to be talking to them.
Do they hear you?
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. That was why I decided.
Yes, actions. Yes.
I had no, I make decent money to buy the things that I would like to buy. I save my money, I work, I'm able to take care of me and my family. I don't depend on art to do that. So being signed to Fuji was not something that I wanted to do because I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna get access to all this stuff that I wouldn't ordinarily have access to. To me, it was because I was like, ooh, I can create access for other people who wouldn't ordinarily have it. That's the whole point.
Beautiful.
And I encourage other men to do that all the time. You know, it's to not just look at your homeboys and be like, oh yeah, like sign, put this person on. Like, look at the women that are out there. Look at the other people who are assigned to all different types of genders. People who are not, traditionally just like put out there. Find those people and put them out there.
So essentially, if the Beeples of the world would activate and start to stand up and provide access for other people, then maybe, so this sounds like what we all need to do in a lot of our spaces is to, if you see something lacking, stand up if you have your foot in the door or with your platform and provide a gateway, through the gatekeepers. Yeah. To make it a thing.
They did that last year on Instagram where people were giving up their platforms to someone that was less known. That would help, like if someone, it didn't have to be people, but someone on those levels, it would help if it's him too, that he partners with historically excluded peoples and does a drop with them. That is a form of like change. But you have to understand the privilege that you're in and care enough to do that.
Awesome. Well, I'm just going to close out with this last question, unless, Rachel, you want to, as a new NFT artist, want to give one word of advice for another new NFT artist.
Well, what I was going to say, I mean, I guess it's a similar philosophy to what I've taken into my own life, which is like exploring different stuff and not getting attached to the idea of being on the most elitist platform or being on the most, whatever, because I've heard a lot of success stories across the board from all different platforms and from all different places. And then I guess I talk to a lot of people who are just like scared to even try, or they're like, well, I don't understand it yet, so I'm not going to do it. And I'm like, well, I have one friend, for instance, who just sold, like, she does doodles, and she sold one for $30 on OpenSea. And she was like, you've been posting all this NFT stuff, and so I just decided to, like, mint something on OpenSea, and I sold one of my doodles for $30. And she's like, it was actually, like, really easy, and it was super cool, and I made money. And I was like, yeah, and I feel like if you're familiar with your phone and doing shit on your phone, then you're gonna be like, oh, like you're going through the process and you're actually like, oh, make an account. Here's my email, here's my password. Like, like bring this over here. I'm confused about something, Google the question, you know what I mean? But it's not as scary as it sounds, and it's not as intimidating as it sounds. So I think the only way to learn is to try.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So we're going to close on this last question, and it's a high note. It's a high one. What excites you most in this technology space, and what are you working on right now?
I don't mind starting. It's like we get to wrap it up sooner. All right. Okay. So what excites me the most? What excites me the most is all of these new systems. I love new things. So new systems, being able to assign value, because people think they're poor. And what they don't recognize is that maybe they have less of something, but they're very rich in something else. And in this time, I recognized the wealth that I have of culture, of communities, of, when I was in these Clubhouse conversations and they were talking about, well, you can assign your value. When I said communities don't crash, within my cultures, we have systems of, that prevent us from falling too deep into poverty, of like susu type things where we, go into these money circles. And so now we're creating digital coins. We're getting into tokenization and bringing all my African peoples, like 5 at a time, because there's too many of them, but thinking that, I was like, I'm just blown away by the wealth that I already had that I wasn't aware of. So my interest isn't in selling one NFT. My interest is in who buys my art. And then when they buy my art, that they get to generate wealth, not just from my art, but all of the community that I'm involved with, that their art constantly, as it goes up in value, they're the mom on the corner, the dad over there, the grandpa, the kids, the excluded communities, they get to buy into this thing.
To me, it's exciting to be an artist in Oakland and to have firsthand experience from moving to Oakland and being broke, being kicked out of every place I lived in, all of my homies being kicked out of every place we lived in, going through all of this stuff, and then the pandemic happens, and then all of the techies start to move out, and we started to see our rent go down, and we're like, what's going on here? And now we're kind of re-entering culture and socialization. And so I know that we're at the ground floor of like rebuilding what culture and interaction looks like to us. And we're also at the ground floor of NFTs and the crypto revolution. And so to be at this point where I know that we're at a young point and I know that I can share this information with people, and like I'm kind of taking the path of like I'm learning and I'm gonna share my learning with you, and once I know, then I'm gonna host classes and like get as many people knowing about this as possible. It's exciting to feel like we're at a building block point that we've like really never been at before. And what I'm working on right now is officially launching the project we have at the Tribune. We have the entire 5th story of the Tribune Tower in downtown Oakland turned into a mural installation. The murals have augmented reality activations by Black Terminus AR. So he tells Black stories through augmented reality, and then we have, documentaries playing. We have We have light form projections on top of the murals, and then we're also just sharing kind of how we're turning this physical space and these experiences into NFTs. So,
Awesome. Woo!
For me, I love the art aspect of NFTs, but that's like just a part of my interest. Honestly, I just believe in the decentralization of everything. I come from a place where life is hard for a lot of people, and I grew up in Richmond. I know some of the smartest, most talented, just like geniuses who were killed or are going to spend the rest of their life in prison. And so the only thing that separated me from that reality was that I happen to have two parents that believed in information, the value of information, and that's what they worked towards, was making sure that I had information, I was educated, and not just educated like reading the books that you go and you read in school, but understanding the world in a much larger aspect, and not believing that America was the end-all be-all, or that my interests should stop here, but that I should understand different things about different cultures. And that impacted the way I saw myself. It impacted the way that I experienced myself within a place like Richmond. And I know that there are tons of other communities just like the one I grew up in. I've been to not many of them, I've been to a lot of different places that were so similar to what I grew up in on a completely different side of the planet, right? Which leads me to believe that there are systems that are at work and at play that are very consistent and happen to certain groups of people. And so the more information we have, the more truth that's in the information that we get, and the greater our ability to access that information, the more empowered we all are. There becomes equity, right? Information brings equity. And so I believe that blockchain will open that up for all people. And so that's what I'm excited about this. As far as an artist, I think NFTs follow along in that suit. It will allow people to create what they want, be what they want, and get what they should get from these systems without having, like, I don't know if you guys know, but if you do a gallery, someone could offer you a 40% commission fee for just hosting your work, and that's actually pretty acceptable.
50 or 60.
Sometimes 60.
Right.
You want more for your work than
Yep.
what you're gonna get, right? So this is a really beautiful time because you don't need that. And what this also, when you eliminate the necessity for those places, they figure out ways to become, to stay open, to stay in business. So maybe they give up a little bit of that. Let's not charge people, 40% commission. Maybe we should do 20 because they can just go on to, Super Rare or whatever and mint it themselves. But we want to host these shows. We want to do things. Let's bring more equity into the space. So I believe in that decentralization is the key to the future of human beings. And that's what excites me about it. And I want to bring that to communities like mine. I want to show kids growing up that, hey, you can be like me. I'm from here. I have a camera. I'm signed to a major company. I put out work I want to put out. I don't go out, I didn't grow up around waterfalls and stuff like that. I grew up in an area where I was surrounded by a lot of what you see in my photos. And I want people to feel encouraged and feel supported in making whatever the work is that they want to make. If you grew up in the Midwest and you're surrounded by nothing but farmers, go contact them farmers and tell that story. You don't have to try to figure out a way to work up enough money to go on vacation every month to take beautiful pictures of some volcano or whatever. More power to you if you can do that, but not everybody can, and that doesn't mean you can't be a photographer. That doesn't mean as an artist you don't have value. And so part of what I like to do is be visible in the sense that this is what I take photos of. These are things that I didn't think were valuable, and guess what? They are. So you can do it as well. And your choices that you make in life can be dictated by the fact that you have value, you're worthy to be in this space, and no one can take that away from you. And some collector or a gallery doesn't have they don't have the right to take advantage of you. And if they don't play ball with you and they don't have things that are going to benefit you, then you can go around them. Put your stuff online for the people. And guess what? Those galleries will hit you up and figure out, hey, how can we do an NFT gallery with you? We want to work with you. So I think, again, to get back to what I was originally saying, decentralization, that's what I believe in. I think that that's going to be the key to us as a people, to be informed and to have just more empowerment as human beings. I would imagine that not all of us in this room are wealthy. We're not all politicians. We don't all come from this long legacy of wealthy people. Most of us are probably what would be considered your average Joe. If you are average Joe in this room, there are groups of people whose wealth depends on you not getting it. So I believe in decentralization because I believe we all deserve to have health care, we all deserve to have homes, we all deserve just basic human rights. And decentralization will get us that. And regardless of what you look like, regardless of what your gender is, regardless of any of that, decentralization will get us there.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Asya. Thank you, everyone, for being here for the Bay Area Art and Equity Conversations with Bay Area Artists of Color. My name is Michelle Antoinette Nelson. I'm so glad that we were able to do this with Oakland Art Murmur, Immersive Arts Alliance, and Shack 15. Thank you all again for coming.